Hello everyone. Welcome to Anthropology Analytica. I am Dr. Arjun Bopanna, Anthropology faculty at InsightsIAS. In today's video, let us discuss this question: what is basic tenet of Malinowski's functionalism? Discuss. So this functionalism is a very important theory that is very oftenly asked in your examination. Both functionalism, structuralism, structural functionalism, all these are very important topics, and most of the time they are asked as 20 marker, and it can even be asked as a 10 marker or a 15 marker question. So in this particular question, we have to write about Malinowski's functionalism. Okay, so in this question, let's see the framework or the structure of your answer. So write about 2 to 3 sentences of introduction to functionalism. Okay, and very briefly about Malinowski, another 2 to 3 sentences about Malinowski and his background. And then you can introduce the concept of culture functionalism given by Malinowski, and then go on to explain the basic idea of how this culture functionalism helps us to understand the culture in society. All right, so we'll have to further write about his theory of needs, and then write about the cultural mechanism to satisfy these needs. So the theory of needs, you have different types of needs, you'll have to write about that. And then in the cultural mechanism, as to how culture responds to these needs and how these needs are satisfied, you'll have to write. And then you'll also have to explain these things by giving examples of his studies done in Trobriand Islands and about myth in Trobriand Islands and how they help us in integration of the society, etc. You need to write. So example is very important. Studies that were done by him is very important. And then you'll have to also write a critical note, because the question is asking you discuss. You have to write about the limitations of functionalism. So you'll have to write how functionalism does not explain cultural variation, and every cultural form has a history of its own. We'll have to write about that. So there are many various criticism that you need to bring out in your answer. And then in the conclusion, again, about 2 to 3 sentences, you'll have to write about the legacy of functionalism, meaning how functionalism helps us to understand, even today functionalism is being used, and how they are, being applied in context of Indian cultural studies, etc. So you can quote M.N. Srinivas and his functional studies that he conducted in the Society of Coorg, where he tries to explain how various rituals that are practiced by the society helps in the integration of the society, right? So that should be your framework. Okay, so a brief introduction followed by the theory of culture functionalism of Malinowski, where you will be talking about the theory of needs and the cultural mechanism. Also, don't forget to add flowchart diagram, okay, to explain this theory of needs. And the critical note of it is also very important, as the question is discussed. And finally the conclusion. So very briefly, let us just try to see what are the important content that has to be there in your answer. So as all of you know that functionalism arose, or functionalism is a challenge to evolutionism and diffusionism, both, because both evolution as well as diffusion, they focused on historical aspects. Okay, it was historical studies. So functionalists said that no, we don't have to study the past. Instead, we need to study on the present. Instead, we need to focus on the role of cultural traits and its practices on contemporary society. So they basically postponed the study of origin. As you all know, the evolutionists and diffusionists, they focused on the origin of the culture. Functionalists said, no, let's not focus on the origin. Let's focus on the role of culture in contemporary society. So they started to talk about how culture is going to satisfy human needs, right? So that basic idea has to be brought out in your introduction. Okay, so functionalists' analysis of social significance of phenomena, right? That has to be mentioned in your answer. So that is your introduction, so basic premise. So that is what you need to write. Then we go on to write about functionalism. So they study how human society functions rather than studying the origin or the evolution or the diffusion of culture. They focused on how the culture is there to satisfy human needs. And also they focused on systemic studies. Okay, so the unit of study is a system. As you all know, system is made up of part, and therefore their study focused on interrelated, interdependent, and integrated aspect of culture studies. Okay, further, they also said that one aspect of society or culture cannot be studied. Like, for example, if you recollect evolutionists, they focused on one aspect of culture. Either it could be religion or kinship, etc. But functionalists said that no, you cannot reduce the culture or society into any one single part and study them. Rather, it has to be studied as a whole, right, in an integrated manner, right? So that has to be also mentioned in the introduction to your question. All right. And then there are some other information that you can add, but obviously don't go on writing too much of the introduction. Just stick to about 2 to 3 sentences about Malinowski and 2 to 3 sentences about functionalism. Okay, and then you go on to write about the functionalism, cultural functionalism given by Malinowski. So over here you can give the subheading the theory of needs, and his book name the scientific theory of culture, and go on to write about how he defines what is needs and what are the different types of needs, primary needs, derived needs, and tertiary needs, and then give examples of the same and explain each of them. So that will be about 2 to 3 paragraph of explaining what is theory, and then you'll have to write these kind of flow chart or chart or table, right? So you have primary needs, you have derived needs and integrated needs, and the cultural response, all of that has to be there. So 2 to 3 paragraph of explaining what is need, and about 3 tables to explain and give examples of the same. So don't get carried away by these tables. What is more important is you to explain what is the concept of primary needs, derived needs, and tertiary needs. So once he explains what are these needs, then he goes on to say that the culture is a vehicle through which man satisfies these needs. So this is the link sentence that helps you to make the transition from explaining what is the needs or needs theory and what is his cultural functionalism. So basically, Malinowski says that culture has a function, and that function is to satisfy human needs. And then you go on to explain what this whole idea of cultural functionalism is, and how culture is an integrated whole, and we need to analyze it from institutional aspect of it and a functional aspect of it. So society or culture is made up of institutions, and these institutions fulfill human needs. While fulfilling these human needs, they have functions. So as long as these institutions are fulfilling needs, they have function. So that is what we have already understood in our introduction. So that has to be elaborated over here. And then you can say society is made up of institutions, and these institutions have charter, and these institutions are made up of people, that is personal, and the people act according to the norms. So these institutions also have norms, and they create a material apparatus who perform certain activities. These activities fulfill functions. So that has to be very clearly explained. So this needs to be explained in about 3 to 4 paragraphs. This is the most important aspect of your answer, because this is where your marks are going to come. So you might have all seen this kind of flowchart. So this flowchart is a must. So you can always say that the society is made up of institutions, and each institutions, they work in an integrated manner, interrelated with each other, and each institutions have charter. So basically this charter is a culturally formulated statement about the justification of these institutions. Why do we have this charter? Like how we have citizen charter, no? Like in an office. Same way, you have a charter which explains what is the purpose of these institutions. So every institution has a purpose, that is your charter, and they are made up up of personal and norms. That is, institutions is made up of personal and norms. Personal act according to these norms. Norms are rules basically based on which people behave in a particular manner. So there are various material apparatus through which various activities are performed, and the final outcome of these activities is to fulfill human needs. That is the function. So that flowchart has to be there, and you write your answer in points explaining each of these charter, personal, norms, etc. Very neatly you write them in your answer. So that is the essential tenets or explanation of culture functionalism given by Malinowski, right? So this is how he explains that an institution fulfills human needs, and these institutions cannot be studied in isolation because they're all integrated, one affecting the other. So that also has to be there in your concluding explanation. So in his book, for example, to explain all of this, in his book Magic, Science, Religion, you all know that he talks about the Kula system, right? So Kula system. So Kula system is an institution in the Trobriand Islanders, and they play a very important role in the integration of the society. Similarly, you can also talk about a myth that is there in Trobriand Islanders and many other societies. In Trobriand Islanders, for example, he talks about the Lukuba and the Malasik, right? Blokuba and Malasik clan and the story behind it. And this helps us to once and for all define the relationship between the two clans. So such examples have been given. Again, don't explain too much about the example. Just mention about 2 to 3 sentences and how using these examples he tries to justify his culture functionalism, right? So that is what is the most important aspect of your answer that has to be there in your answer. And obviously at the end you can also talk about the criticism about Malinowski's functionalism, where it does not talk about cultural variation, because if needs are same everywhere, right? Why does culture develop in different ways? And culture has its own history that is not taken account in functionalism. The primacy is given to cultural functions and not the form. Every form has its own history. So like that, there are many criticism of Malinowski's functionalism that has to be also brought about in your answer. At the end, maybe in the conclusion, just what comes out of my mind is about M.N. Srinivas and his study in India, where he uses functionalism to explain the utility of rituals among the Kurks society, right? So like this, you can also mention that anthropologists have been using functionalism to explain culture across the world, including in India. So that can be a very good conclusion for your answer. So this is what is expected out of this particular question. What is the basic tenets of Malinowski's functionalism? If you write all these points and some of the specific keywords like system, study in an integrated, interrelated, interdependent manner, theory of needs, and then write the book name, and then write the table, then you write about culture functionalism, and then you draw this particular chart, and then you write about the criticism, I'm sure you will be getting very good marks. At least 15 out of 20 is very easily achievable in this particular question. I hope this was useful. In our next video, let's try to understand this concept of holism in anthropology. I hope it was useful. Thank you for watching.